Welcome back. We are recording live today from Continuity Insights in Louisiana. What am I saying?
We're not in Louisiana. We did not drink last time.
No, I'm only having pop and I'm already out of it. Louisville, Kentucky, the Continuity Insights 2022 conference. Having a great time. We did our first recording last year, Jane.
Last night.
I am way off today.
Too much Coke Zero for Alex today, people.
Holy cow. Yeah, we did our first hour yesterday, Monday, and went really well. We didn't lose our voices. We had people stop by. I thought it went really well. How about you?
We're back for day 2. We have spent more time thinking about electrical cords, power cords, and power outlets than I've ever wanted to. All kinds of shenanigans happening this morning. It's very dim in here. I don't know if it's cocktail hour at 11 in the morning. It's much darker than yesterday.
Lots of bourbon around here.
But yeah, we are in Bourbon City. Full disclosure, no one's been drinking bourbon during the broadcast, before or after the podcast.
Yeah.
But we're here again.
Yeah. Day 2, hour 1. We're
3
going to be doing
hours.
3 hours. We'll record, 45, 50 minutes, and then take a quick break so we can rehydrate or just relax vocal cords, and then we'll start again. We've got lots of people stopping by today. We've invited a lot, so hopefully they'll come by. A couple of surprises. I haven't told James yet, but I have a special announcement in our second hour.
Oh.
I haven't told you yet.
Oh, this is exciting.
It'll be something special. At least I think it is, but you're a part of it, so I'm looking forward to that. And we got, just like yesterday, lots of topics to touch base on. And if we run out of time, we'll talk about taxis and Uber.
We had a very long discussion. It was very eye-opening, and we will probably share that with everyone in hour 3 after I rant about our trash can.
Oh, that's right. Yes, our $20 trash
$20 trash can. So first up, Alex, let's talk about overnight in Beijing, panic buying. It looks like, as of a couple hours ago, that Beijing possibly is going to go back into lockdown because of COVID-19. When China locks down, very different than how the United States does it, they actually lock down. So lots of people worried about not having the right supplies. So certainly I saw some, in the Telegraph, there's articles of runs at shops and markets. And, we talk about, and a lot of people in our profession talk about COVID and the medical aspect and the science aspect. I'd like to explore for a few minutes the mental and emotional aspect. If we go into lockdown again, so parts of Australia have had 4 lockdowns.
Melbourne.
Beijing has had 3 or 4. What do you think the effect is going to be on people's psyche, people's mental and emotional health if we have to go back to where we were a year ago or 2 years ago?
On this side of the ocean or that side of the ocean?
Let's start with that side and then talk about this side.
That side, if they go down into lockdown again, there's already a panic there. You already mentioned that. And there were already pictures of empty shelves, long lineups, everyone wearing masks. And I don't know if anyone's been to Beijing. I have, and you really are squeezed in. There are tens of millions of people there. So if you're in lockdown, you're stuck in small apartments. We're not talking the kind of homes that we have on this side of the ocean, larger condos. Granted, some condos are small. If you're in lockdown, you're running out of food, you can't travel, and as you said, it's a the zero tolerance policy. You can't go anywhere, can't do anything. So if you're in a situation with other family members, because the family members, stay together there, that's going to have a huge impact on your mental health over there. Because you're in small, cramped quarters with people, and no one can go anywhere. Nobody can do anything. And then the other piece, because you can't go shopping, which is causing the panic shopping right now, Beijing is in right around the breadbasket area. It's just very fertile area. So if they go into lockdown, even if they run out of food, there's not going to be anybody to move that food from the farms into the city, package it up, sell it. I think that is also going to contribute to the mental health of these people, because they're only limited to buy a certain amount. So you can't buy 10 rolls, 10 packages of toilet paper, 4 rolls each. I don't know if that's the case or not, but 4 rolls each, and that's it. Well, Shanghai's been in lockdown 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, Beijing is bigger. Imagine that place being cut down. And before that 4 weeks, if it goes down for 4 or 5 weeks or longer, because it's not lifted in Shanghai, then that's going to contribute even more. There are already, I don't know if you saw the posts on, what's the Chinese social media site? Weibo or Weibo, something like that?
Yeah.
Where people are already criticizing the lockdowns in Shanghai and what it's doing to people. And that's 20 million people or something, or if not more. Beijing is bigger. Now you've got more people, and the government can't control the message. So for the first time now, people are going to be really vocal about this shutdown. So it's going to be really different for China to manage this time if Beijing goes into a full lockdown, which I think they're going to.
Yeah. And now to focus on this side of the pond, what do you think will happen here from a mental and emotional aspect if we go back into, because one thing I find interesting, flying the last few months in the United States, the mask mandate has become a political, flashpoint. I think that's particularly heightened in the airports and on airplanes. We've seen, unfortunately, escalated violence towards flight attendants in the United States about the mask mandate. The mask mandate, as of today in the United States, a federal judge ruled that it was unconstitutional. TSA said they would not appeal that ruling. All of the airlines and TSA immediately lifted the mask mandate about a week or so ago. So now people are flying with masks optionally. I worry about if that mandate that was so contentious to begin with, if that mandate comes back. I really worry about, it's been tense flying on planes. It was very tense flying after 9/11 in the United States, which which makes total sense. And I recall and I remember, and I haven't felt anywhere near that level of tension since, but I would think the second level of tension has been around the mask mandates when a flight attendant asks someone to put their mask on or put it back on. It now seems people are waiting to see if it escalates. And I worry that if that mandate becomes a requirement again, that vocalization, that physical opposition is going to get out of hand.
I agree. It will. It will, because I really don't understand how anywhere in the world, not just the United States or even Canada, how a health issue became a political issue. Would the same thing happen if there was a mandate for people with cancer or HIV or diabetes or something else? I don't think the same response would happen. Wearing a mask to save your life. From me, my point of view is that is a tiny, tiny way of protecting yourself and those around you. So, but with the politicalization, it feels as though it's, and I heard this on the news. Somebody said it's their God-given right not to wear a mask. I'm going, well, I don't recall hearing a mask mentioned in the Bible. How is it a God-given right? It's not in the 10 Commandments. Where is this coming from? So it may be an inconvenience. Maybe people just don't like being inconvenienced. But I think if they put this mask mandate in, whether it be a school, a city, health agency recommendation, federal government, wherever it comes from, there's going to be a whole bunch of people complaining. And they're going to get angry about it. And they're going to take it to the streets. You're going to have these, I don't know if you remember, but just a couple of months ago in Canada, they had a truck convoy going to the city of Ottawa because they didn't like mask mandates. And they only represented less than 10% of all truckers, but it was a truckers convoy.
Exactly.
Even the truckers union didn't support them, what they were doing. But they put up a big fuss, and it became something more than just a mask mandate. if they bring in a mask mandate, it also brings in other people to latch on to this issue and make it bigger than what it is. So if a mandate comes back again after all the problems that we've already experienced with riots or demonstrations, and people getting hurt at some of these places, then it's going to get worse this time around.
Absolutely. One thing I find interesting, if we look at the United States Center for Disease Control and we look at just from a business continuity and crisis management standpoint, set aside how we feel about COVID or the science or politically, if we look at this just as a business continuity incident, and we all talk about the importance of crisis communications, and we look at, for me, the communications that have been put out by the US CDC in particular the last 2.5 years. This is really a what not to do during disaster. What do we always advise our organizations and clients? You need to have clear messages. You need to have consistent messages. Look at, early on you had this person saying this thing, this person saying that thing, all from the same organization, led to a lot of confusion. And there's been criticism around some of the mask mandates in terms of, oh, this mandate will expire in 30 days. Well, how do you know what a pandemic's going to do in 30 days? I'm all in favor of mandates that follow science, but I think they got in trouble and fed some of the political arguments when you should just have a mandate, and then when it's all clear, you lift it, as opposed to it's going to expire in 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Like, you don't say in a business continuity incident, oh, it'll be safe in 3 days. You state the facts of what you know then. You state when your next update will be. And I think if we were to do, maybe it'd be a fun thought exercise, if we were to do an AAR of an after action review of what the CDC's done, just from a comm standpoint, through the lens of business continuity, I think everyone in our audience would be like, oh, we don't do that, or we would never tell our organization to do that. So it's certainly interesting that it's become a political thing and a political lightning rod, but I think, the people in charge maybe should have listened to some of their business continuity professionals on messaging.
Well, and to expand on that too, if you're giving me the expectation of 30 days I don't have to wear a mask, okay, I'll handle it for 30 days.
Yeah.
Then that 30 days is up. Oh no, it's going to be another 30 days. Okay, fine. No, we're going to extend it another 30 days. Okay, I'm getting pissed off now. Why can't you get, to your point, get your story straight? You told me 60 days before I'd be taking the mask off. It's now 90 days. I'm still wearing the mask. I'm getting PO'd. And then that just feeds in to the more negativity that's going on. So if the mask mandate comes back, we already have these people that are PO'd because of the last time. And they're just going to say, to a point, what's the point of listening to you? You can't get your message right. And you keep contradicting yourself and changing your message. So, you know what? I'm not even going to listen to your message anymore.
Yeah, because there's certainly confusion around, is this a safety measure? And I think what we saw in the United States last week, when the mask mandate was repealed by TSA, you had a lot of U.S. airlines announcing while flights were mid-air that you could no longer wear a mask. So in the flight, in the metal tube, right, it became safe or not safe. That just seemed a really strange decision for me. Again, from a messaging standpoint, I would have thought those airlines would have put that mandate into effect with the next flight, not in the middle of the flight. Because again, if you looked at the responses, there were a lot of people who were upset on both sides. I feel like the major airlines in the United States, United, Delta, American, Southwest, they upset everybody last week. So it was kind of like a lose-lose for them and another hit to their brand. And we've talked a lot about over the last couple of months how brands are being affected positively and negatively over the last few years. And I thought it was an interesting you have to wear a mask for an hour and a half and then not the next hour and a half.
Yeah, I thought that was rather strange when I saw that, because there were the videos you could see of attendants walking down the aisle with a garbage bag and people pulling off their masks and dropping them in. But then there were other people who kept them on.
Yeah.
So in mid-flight, suddenly they've created an us versus them.
Exactly.
right off the bat. And I think they should have waited until the plane landed, each plane landed wherever they were, and then said, that's it. Going forward, any new flights taking off, you don't need the mask mandate. Okay, now everybody's on the same page. But in the middle of a flight, you're not on the same page.
Again, yeah, agreed. And again, I'm not talking about the effectiveness of masks, and I'm not talking about the political aspect of masks. Just from a crisis communication standpoint, the last week and really year and a half has been very interesting.
Yeah, well, you even have different messages from, because your health system down here is different too, and different regions or states had different mandates.
Yes.
But the health risk was exactly the same. So even on that level, you had different messages all over the place.
Yes, we did. One other thing we were talking about before we went on the air with Shanghai in lockdown, if Beijing goes into lockdown, we had a supply chain crunch and have had a supply chain crunch. And I saw an article, I believe in Bloomberg this morning, that they said, if China goes into full lockdown again, $22 billion US worth of goods and services, or I guess just goods, are going to be impacted. Do you think organizations, from a business continuity standpoint, can handle another supply chain crunch, a big one?
No, I don't think the globe can handle it. We are, whether you want to admit it or not, we are very dependent on what comes out of China. Because for years, organizations, manufacturers, whatever you did, looked at the cheapest option. And the cheapest option for years was China.
Yep.
So if China goes down, or goes into lockdown, or it increases the impact of their supply chains, things that have to go in, things that come out, it's only going to get worse. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And there's going to be a big shakeup globally, one from the impact, but two, it'll be interesting to see if companies still want to do business with China after that. They may take the hit. Fine, I'll pay 15% more to buy that product from India or from the UK or wherever. We'll build it in our own nation, and that's what could happen if China goes down again.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a long-term concern. It was interesting. We spoke about the Twitter acquisition or going private yesterday, and Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO and founder of Amazon, publicly stated last night he wondered if Twitter's policies would change or Tesla's would change because of China. And I thought it was interesting that someone who has a lot of business and a lot of manufacturing for goods and services that originate in China would speak and speculate about that did Elon Musk realize that his other manufacturing companies, what are you going to do? Twitter right now is not authorized for legal use in China. How does that affect? Certainly, it was interesting. Jeff Bezos, who, to your point, a lot of products sold on Amazon are from China, commenting about the legitimacy or efficacy of China. And I wonder, to your point, we're in year 3 of a pandemic with 4th or 5th or 6th lockdowns outside of political concerns. If you're just looking at, we have more lights coming on, or I'm about to have a stroke, one of the two. Looking at manufacturing concerns or concentration risk, companies are starting to move to other parts of the world, and that increases their costs in the long run.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I wish all the people in Beijing the best. I don't want a bunch of people to get sick or anything. But if they go into lockdown, it's going to be interesting to see what that ripple effect is going to be economically and politically.
Yeah, and I think it's changing. We're seeing a lot of organizations change how they do things. So a lot of my manufacturing clients the last 20, 30 years have operated on a just-in-time mentality following the great automotive companies of Japan. Toyota was one of the leaders of, how do we trim excess from the whole supply chain? Let's make everything just in time all the way up and down the chain. And companies who subscribe to that philosophy have been hit hard. the last 2.5 years, because now if you're relying on one thing that relies on three other things and it's 90 days late, you've, messed up your entire revenue model. And I have some manufacturing companies that I know where they've started to build in a lot of slack because they know we'd rather carry inventory and still keep our customers. And I think if we go into another supply chain crunch, you're going to see more organizations abandon the just-in-time model because they're going to get burnt. It's almost like carrying extra inventory is a type of insurance these days.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what happened after the tsunami and Fukushima power plant incident in Japan. And it's interesting you mentioned Toyota, because Toyota was one of those places that in that area, they had a plant that made nothing but parts that went all across North America. And I know the plant that's not far from my house, an hour down Highway 401, had to cut back on shifts because of using just-in-time inventory, and they couldn't get it for a long time. So they were cutting shifts everywhere. And they just got everything back to normal. They've identified some new suppliers and moved some things around, and then the pandemic hit. So it's like their contingency, their fix for the first disaster hasn't worked now because they've got another disaster. So what's going to happen next? They're not going to deal with Japan anymore in those parts. Are they going to look at opening a plant somewhere in Canada or the US to make these parts now, just in case?
Exactly. Very interesting. So if you're watching or listening right now, if you're a manufacturing company or if you're changing some of your supply chain philosophies because of the last 2 years or what's happening just this month, we'd love to hear from you. We love messages, good or bad. Yep, always. I want to go back to something that Cheyenne Marling spoke about yesterday and that you are very passionate about. So yesterday, when Cheyenne was giving us, I guess, exclusive insight into the BC Management Compensation Study, we asked her, what are some skill set gaps that you're consistently seeing from companies looking to hire our colleagues? And she said it was around those soft skills, those strategic skills. And I know you spent a lot of time in your session yesterday speaking about that. So I'd love for you to kind of expand or expound maybe your thoughts on that and the skill sets.
Well, I think overall, you can buy books and see a webinar and take a training course on how to do BIAs, and we're going to talk about those later, and writing a plan, what goes in a plan, things like that. I think those are the easy things to do, because I can, if I want to, I can get a book or sit through a seminar and learn code. But what I can't learn, from a book is how to speak to people, knowing that everybody is an individual, and how I may approach you about a subject is going to be different than how I have to approach somebody else. So understanding that, and being able to, I think it was somebody said it yesterday, read the room. It's going to be different, and learning how to do that and how to get everybody included into a conversation. And during yesterday's presentation, I mentioned it a few times. You can be in meetings and it ends up being the same couple of people talking, yet there's 30 people on the call. That's not a number, doesn't mean inclusivity. And I think for a soft skill, you have to know, I just need these people here. I just need to keep them on topic. Don't let them go down rabbit holes, and being able to understand what it is they're really looking for. And if somebody is always complaining or raising red flags over everything, it probably means they have a concern that nobody has been listening to them. And I actually ran into that years ago at a company, the last place I worked full-time employee. There was a director in finance. And every time we had a meeting about business continuity or ITDRP or security, something, he would always go the opposite way. He'd always find something wrong with what was going on. And I didn't understand it. This is back when I wasn't clear on how to approach people and learn these different soft skills and how to communicate. So I finally said, bite the bullet, even though it's risky. I thought it was a big risk. It was scary, but I approached him out of the meeting and said, can we have just chat for a little bit? And I asked him, I said, I'm getting the feeling that there's an issue that you've got that I'm not catching. Can you explain it just one-on-one without other people interrupting? So it made it seem as though I was trying to listen to him, but other people were cutting him off. So that I wasn't trying to come to him, or making him think he was the problem. I wanted to think I wasn't understanding. And we had a really open conversation, and it turned out that that's exactly what was happening in previous meetings. Before I got there, nobody was listening. And he had some major concerns, and they were never addressed. They kept coming up in every exercise, every test. And finally, I understood where he was coming from. I documented it, just like I said in my presentation with the RAID log. I documented the action, followed it up. He became one of my strongest allies after a while.
Can you expand for those who weren't in your session, the RAID log,
the
add-on, and particularly I really like the add-on that you have for that. See, I was listening.
Yeah, you were
listening. And paying attention in your session.
I had a few people come up and ask me, what do all that stand for again?
Yes.
A RAID log is RAID-LLAP Log, the full name. I actually got from my project management, program management experience. And RAID-LLAP Log is documenting risks, actions, issues, and decisions. And the LLAP part is lessons learned, assumptions, and parking lot. Any meeting I have or anything that happens, I capture all of it. If there's an assumption made, I document it. And then you challenge it later on, either through an exercise or another meeting that comes up about that topic. I was in another meeting, we talked about that, and it's assumed such and such. Is that correct? And you have to challenge it and find out what's going on. So that actually helps, because people then start seeing this is someone who's really following through on things. They're holding people accountable or responsible for an action item or a decision, documenting when it was made, how it was made, who made it, and we're always able to close the loop when something happens. So that's what a RAID-LLAP Log is, and it's a project manager's best tool.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about how you learned these soft skills over years of experience and trial and error. And so what I find interesting in what you spoke about in your session and what Cheyenne mentioned last night and what we've seen the last couple of years throughout the industry, there's a significant gap in those soft skills. But to learn those soft skills takes time.
Yes.
I'm a huge proponent of a lot of Dale Carnegie training. So the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think is a phenomenal resource to learn how to communicate with people. Their public speaking course is a phenomenal speaking course to give people confidence.
Like Toastmasters.
Yeah. Things that give people confidence, I think, should be requirements in our industry. But if we recognize that as our jobs and our profession go from tactical to strategic, and those soft skills are required to be a strategic leader, but also those soft skills takes years to develop. I think we're doing a disservice to the junior members of our profession if we don't get them started on that track now. I think I said one smart thing in my session yesterday.
You said a lot of smart things.
I said one smart thing, and I just came to me, and after I said it, I'm like, oh, that was actually the smartest thing you've said today, where I said, who here's ever been promoted because of how great are their BIAs and BCPs? None of us get promoted based on our tactical skills. We get promoted based on our strategic skills. But the soft side of those strategic skills take time. And I worry that if we're not developing and mentoring people in our profession now, how else are you going to learn those skills? They take time. You can't instantly just I have a high emotional, EQ, and I know how to work with people and manage people and talk to people.
Myself, I learned it all trial and error. What worked, what didn't work, and I had a couple of good managers at the time who sat me down and gave me some insight and guidance on how to learn some of these things and how to change what I was doing. What it really came down to is me. I have to look at me. I can't read a book and say this is how you should do it, or even listen to someone like me in a presentation. Yes. may get some insights out of it. But when it comes down to it, you really have to look at yourself. If you don't like the way you're being talked to, you're talked down to, well, then you can't do that to other people. You have to be not afraid, take that risk, take that step forward to make a change in yourself. And to your point, that can take a long time, but it starts with you. And I think the problem for many is they try to find that answer in others or from others, from a webinar, a presentation, a book, something that's great. It's good reference information, but until you internalize that and start making a difference with yourself, none of those soft skills will materialize. And that's actually how I dealt with it. And you know this, I'm a practicing Buddhist, so it all starts with me and my intentions. And so I adopted that, and that made all the difference. I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong, and listen to other people, which is why I love talking with yourself and Regina and so many other guests on the show, for YouTube or Voice America, because I'm open to understanding that my opinion isn't the only one out there. And a lot of people think I'm an expert or a specialist, so that means my opinion trumps yours. No, it doesn't. It means you have something to share, but you also should be open to others to share as well. And that's how you develop those soft skills. And it does take a long time. And it's not easy, because sometimes you have to face some of your negative aspects and really face them head on. This is happening because I'm a derriere person, you know, you know, and you have to realize that. And it's not easy, but when you do realize that, you will start developing your soft skills, and you will get and build better relationships with your colleagues, your managers, or if you are a manager, you'll find that your direct reports are responding to you better, and it really starts with you. But it takes a long time to build them and to admit it. And that is something that doesn't get taught to new people in the industry. That's something that gets completely lost because we keep focusing too much on here's how you do X, Y, Z.
Exactly, the tactical aspects.
Yeah, we don't teach or we don't give advice on sharing our lessons learned, because a lot of people don't want to share their mistakes. I have no problem sharing mine. I've fallen on my face many times, and will still do it many times. And I'm not afraid to share that with someone so that I know they don't experience the same thing. And I explain to them, this is why it happened. If you can learn from this, when you encounter this situation, you're going to have a stronger ability to deal with it. And hopefully you don't fall on your face like I did.
Yeah, and I think, looking at school systems in most countries, being vulnerable and being reflective is not what's rewarded. There's certain ways to achieve high marks in school, and it seems those skills don't necessarily translate to being successful in the world.
Yeah.
They're very different skill sets. And one thing I was just thinking, I always encourage junior people on my team or people I'm mentoring to start presenting. And I don't care if it's at your church, at your school, your kid's school, at a conference. It doesn't matter where. When you are in front of a room of people and you are out on an island, to your point, you are extremely vulnerable, and you are going to learn more about yourself. And I think you learn more about how to effectively communicate with people in such a rapid time. And the feedback is immediate. As we all know, with presentations, if people aren't interested, sometimes they'll just leave, or sometimes they'll just, immediately that you're not connecting. And through that trial and error, you can figure out how to connect with an audience, no matter how small or big. And I think that skill set really translates to when you're trying to connect with your coworkers and your colleagues. And I know it's terrifying. I talk to people, I could never speak in public, but you do. I would argue if you speak in a meeting, that is very similar to speaking in public. There's a great chapter in a book called Why Men Win at Work, where the author talks about what you say in a meeting at work has a huge, um, I guess, differentiator if you get promoted or not. Your boss, your supervisor sees you confidently speaking in a meeting.
Mhm.
They think you're the smartest person in the room, the best person for the job. And so I really encourage people, you have to be confident and calm in those meetings. You don't want to be a bully, you don't want to run over people. And I think a lot of the skills you learn from speaking, like I said, at church or Toastmasters or at a conference like this or anything, translates into that meeting success, which if you're in the traditional, or not traditional, I guess, white collar back office business world, that's where promotions are won and lost, is in those, in that setting.
Yeah, and I actually over the years in meetings I found I say less. Just because I was talking didn't mean, I'm talking the most. Well, that doesn't mean everything I'm saying is of any value.
Correct.
So now I've actually cut back on what I say, and I find more people are listening.
Well, yeah, because we always have that person in the meeting. Alex says, I find more people are listening. And then James says, yeah, that's right. More people are listening. That parrot effect. And I think, well, I'm talking a lot, but I'm not adding any value. And it's just obvious
Yeah,
what I'm doing.
yeah, and for new people, I think joining your church or a local Toastmasters or something that builds your confidence, even small groups, and you can even do that at work. You have a small little, I don't know if you want to call it lunch and learn or something like that, but I'm not a big fan of those, but a lunch and learn session, um, talking about something that you're passionate to will actually help build your confidence. If I went out and started talking how to rebuild a mainframe, well, let me tell you, I'll fall flat on my face within the first 2 minutes. It's not going to go over well at all. But I think to your point, if you are new and you want the confidence, think about something you know and talk about that. And that'll build your confidence up to start expanding your talk. And if you get one conference under your belt, let's say you're here at Continuity Insights and you're talking, well, you get to talk with so many other people in your field as well. And they're all going to say, some people are going to come up to you afterwards, that was really great. Or, hey, did you ever think about such and such? That as well, adding to your topic, and you're going to get some great positive feedback and it'll build things up. But it's hard for new people to do that because in some instances they don't even know where to go.
Yeah, I think you need to, I got asked after the DRJ Spring Conference by someone, oh, you speak on the main stage. I want to do that. I didn't start on the main stage, right? None of us did. I started at a small local chapter ACP meeting where I presented committee minutes. And then I presented there in front of an audience of 2 or 3. And then as your confidence grows, your audience grows. And we'll talk more about it later. But I found as I spoke more about, to your point, I didn't speak about how to put together a mainframe, but as I spoke more about the things I'm passionate about, my audience grew, because I like to see any passionate speaker at any conference. I don't even care what the topic is, allegedly. When they're passionate, I'm invested.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people miss quite a bit. It's not about being perfect. Everyone here knows I'm a messy speaker and I don't always know what's coming out, but I try to be passionate and I try to inspire people. And that's how you connect with an audience. But that's also going back to the soft skills for our colleagues. That's how you connect with your coworkers. I always talk about how do you inspire and get that accounting manager to do their business continuity and risk task. And we'll set aside whether those are effective or not. But if you're in an organization where those tasks are required, a lot of people try to go the stick route. Like, well, if you don't get this stuff done, Alex, I'm going to have to report you up to the CRO. That's a really bad way to build a career.
Yeah.
If you can inspire people and figure out how to solve their problems by connecting with them, then they're going to do that kind of stuff on their own, and it's going to be more valuable to you and the organization.
Agreed. And speaking to at conferences, you don't have to have tons of experience to do that. And to James's point, you just need to be passionate about what it is you want to talk about, something you enjoy. If you enjoy race cars, well, then look for something where you can talk about race cars.
Exactly.
Right? And that'll build your own confidence, and then maybe you can carry that over into other areas of your life, not just your professional life, but your personal life as well, and build your confidence. And it doesn't matter if you're an extrovert or introvert either, because it's well known, I've said it 1,000 times on this show, I'm an introvert.
Very public facing introvert.
But you put me on something like this in front of a camera and a microphone, or when we're recording, I come out of my shell. But as soon as the off switch goes out, off I go to the side again and sit down and just relax and regroup, and that's how I re-energize. But I enjoy talking about business continuity and resilience and people in general. I love it. I always have. So that's how I got books. That's how I speak at conferences, by just following what I enjoy. And it comes down to myself. My passion is I don't want people to suffer. And that's it. Everything stems from that, for me. And that means fires, floods, pandemics, mainframes that collapse, whatever the case may be. I don't want people to suffer when there are ways to deal with it already that can be leveraged to help them. And that's the way I look at it. James, you're the director of marketing or whatever. You don't want to do disaster or any of my BIA stuff or anything. Well, I don't want you to suffer, because this is what might happen. And I'll tell you what might happen if I can't work with you. And you're going to see that this guy is thinking of me, not himself. And that makes a big difference. And that's part of the soft skills.
Exactly. I want to wrap up our first hour. I'll ask you a question. So you and I had spoken before the conference off the air. I shared with you how tiring I found the first conference, being around people for 12 hours. You were kind enough yesterday to share your thoughts about traveling the first time in 2.5 years. So I'd love to get your thoughts. When we went off the air last night, were you awake and energized? Were you exhausted? Did you hide? How'd you feel last night?
When we finished and went off the air, I felt exhilarated, because we actually made it through without messing ourselves up bad.
Did knock anything over. I was very excited.
I felt good. By the time I got back up to the room and posted everything to YouTube and updated everything, all of a sudden I did feel, I'm wiped now. And I just ended up staying in the room and got a little something to eat, and that was it. Didn't go anywhere. Right afterwards, it's okay. I've had my time in the limelight. I need to regroup. And to regroup for me, like I said, as an introvert, isn't to be around tons of other people. So that's how I felt afterwards yesterday. I needed that downtime to regroup and relax and get ready for today, because I knew we'd be doing it for 3 hours instead of 1.
Exactly. I was on the phone with my wife last night, and she said, "You're very quiet." I said, "Well, wait until tomorrow, because I might not even say a word." With that, Alex, we have reached the end of our first segment. So we're going to take a break here. And when we come back up at the top of the hour, we've got a lot more topics and several surprise guests.
Yeah, and I have a surprise announcement, which you don't know about
exciting.
yet. So, but you're a part of it. So we will be right back. What, 10
to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes to get set up for our next second hour.
All right.
Great. We'll see everybody soon. Stay prepared, everybody.
So you guys are going